The NSLARP Chicken Little scenario illustrates a critical misunderstanding about the nature of threats, demonstrating how panic and misinterpretation can overshadow genuine dangers. Chicken Little's alarm over an acorn mistaken for the sky falling symbolizes a failure to accurately interpret subtle signals. Worse, Chicken Little and her friends, instead of scrutinizing their assumptions, followed Foxy Loxy, an opportunist who leveraged their fear and confusion to lead them directly into disaster. This scenario emphasizes a core truth. Accurately identifying threats is not enough. It's essential to grasp their true nature. The world today faces increasingly subtle numeric instabilities within critical systems, aviation, aerospace, and power grids, where unnoticed small errors multiply silently. If we continue misreading these subtle signs or let opportunistic actors control narratives, society risks catastrophic systemic failures. Thus, Chicken Little's lesson transcends mere vigilance. It calls for critical evaluation and precise interpretation before fear is exploited by misinformation or deliberate manipulation. In early 2025, aviation has suffered an alarming rise in disasters across diverse geographies, aircraft types, and regulatory environments, revealing troubling systemic fragility. Incidents in South Korea, Philadelphia, Toronto, Alaska, and Honduras, each catastrophic in isolation, collectively illustrate that aviation's reliability may be unraveling. These events occurred despite normal operations, clear weather, and standard procedures, highlighting that traditional safeguards were insufficient. Investigations pinpoint conventional causes, human error, weather, mechanical failures, but fail to grasp the deeper systemic commonality. The narrative posits that hidden numeric instabilities beneath digital models and simulations, previously considered harmless, are now triggering catastrophic outcomes. Aviation's accumulating failures symbolize a systemic vulnerability. Reliance on decimal approximations and numerical precision in modeling dynamic systems has introduced hidden fragilities. Without fundamentally reassessing our numeric foundations, aviation faces ever-narrowing safety margins, making further tragedy inevitable. Parallel to aviation's failures, SpaceX's Starship program has revealed similar hidden numeric instabilities, exemplified by dramatic mid-air explosions scattering debris across populated areas. Public responses, carefully managed by regulatory leniency and political economic interests, framed these disasters as acceptable innovation costs, obscuring deeper systemic fragility. Starship vehicles consistently failed, despite individual subsystems meeting their precise numeric specifications. Investigations privately recognized unexpected harmonic responses, subtle numeric approximations in structural modeling, triggering catastrophic resonances unnoticed by digital simulations. Yet, instead of reassessment, regulatory inertia and economic urgency accelerated operations, perpetuating the illusion of managed risk. Starship's failures demonstrate a critical systemic blindness. Engineers trust numeric approximations despite subtle distortions growing into uncontrollable resonances. Without challenging these foundational assumptions, disasters will persist, invisibly escalating beyond aerospace into broader infrastructure. The catastrophic blackout at Heathrow Airport symbolizes how subtle numeric approximations in critical infrastructure quietly build into systemic crises. A minor transformer fire cascaded into widespread blackouts because digital monitoring systems, reliant on numeric precision, overlooked accumulating sensor errors. Regulators and operators rapidly restored normalcy without addressing foundational numeric vulnerabilities, effectively embedding deeper systemic instability into global networks. Heathrow's rushed recovery exacerbated hidden numeric distortions, transferring invisible stresses into interconnected aviation, communication, and energy grids worldwide. The Heathrow incident highlights a dangerous dynamic. Reliance on numeric precision has silently compromised system coherence, creating conditions ripe for future cascading failures. Yet societal urgency for normalcy obscures deeper reassessment, leaving these numeric vulnerabilities dangerously unaddressed. The engineering community's instinctive response to failures tightening numeric tolerances and refining digital approximations, is fundamentally misguided, forming a destructive precision trap. Increasing decimal precision does not improve accuracy, but exacerbates systemic fragility. Every numeric approximation contains hidden rounding errors, invisibly compounding in dynamic systems governed by feedback loops. Over successive iterations, errors magnify exponentially, destabilizing engineered systems, from aircraft to power grids to rockets, triggering catastrophic failures. Ironically, engineers respond by further tightening tolerances, embedding deeper numeric instabilities and reducing margins for error. Thus, a vicious cycle emerges. Precision tightening feeds hidden inaccuracies, silently eroding systemic coherence. Breaking this cycle requires acknowledging that numeric precision itself is flawed. A conceptual shift engineers resist due to cultural pride, economic pressures, and regulatory inertia. Decimal-based numeric precision is fundamentally flawed because irrational constants like pi and the square root of 2 cannot be exactly represented. Modern engineering's reliance on floating-point approximations introduces inherent numeric errors. Individually, these errors might seem insignificant, but cumulatively they can be catastrophic. Complex systems, such as aircraft structures, rocket engines, and electrical grids, depend critically on exact harmonic relationships. However, decimal approximations distort these harmonics, invisibly accumulating until catastrophic systemic failures occur. Worse still, digital monitoring and simulations trust their flawed numeric models implicitly, failing to detect these hidden inaccuracies. Each iteration magnifies errors silently, creating undetectable systemic drift. Recognizing this requires abandoning decimal approximation entirely, shifting instead to ratio-based computation, exact numeric relationships immune to cumulative rounding errors. Conventional engineering responses following disasters inadvertently amplify underlying numeric instability. Aviation, aerospace, and grid infrastructure all respond to failures with tighter numeric tolerances, greater decimal precision, and increasingly complex simulations. Rather than stabilizing systems, these measures intensify hidden numeric distortions, embedding deeper fragility. Each incremental improvement deepens reliance on flawed decimal approximations, narrowing systemic safety margins and increasing vulnerability. Worse, these systemic failures interact globally. Starship explosions disrupt aviation. Heathrow's blackout impacts global travel, creating interconnected systemic vulnerabilities. Regulatory urgency and economic pressures accelerate quick-fix approaches, perpetuating numeric instability. Thus, current engineering responses represent a destructive feedback loop, making further catastrophic failures mathematically inevitable. Escaping systemic numeric instability requires a revolutionary paradigm shift away from decimal approximations toward ratio-based numeric foundations. Ratios precisely represent numeric relationships without approximation or rounding, preserving systemic coherence over iterative calculations and feedback loops. Applied practically, ratios ensure structural harmonics in aircraft remain predictably stable. Rockets maintain exact numeric harmonies and grids achieve robust frequency synchronization. Achieving this revolution demands re-engineering computational architectures to prioritize exact numeric relationships, transforming education, regulatory standards, and cultural attitudes. Despite technical feasibility, the greatest challenge remains cultural. Overcoming entrenched economic incentives, regulatory inertia, and professional pride committed to decimal approximations. Yet embracing this revolution is essential, offering a genuinely stable foundation for critical infrastructure protecting human lives, economic value, and societal confidence from systemic numeric collapse. Participants in the NSLARP scenario embody Chicken Little's role, identifying hidden numeric instabilities, interpreting their significance for diverse audiences, and strategically influencing broader narratives toward revolutionary systemic change. Success requires awareness to recognize subtle numeric signals, others overlook interpretation, to translate complex numeric concepts into broadly accessible narratives, and influence to ensure dominant narratives cannot exploit confusion or inertia. Unlike Chicken Little, participants benefit from collective insight, decentralized narratives, and community-driven momentum, collaboratively highlighting foundational numeric fragilities within aviation, aerospace, and infrastructure. Ultimately, the scenario challenges teams to inspire genuine paradigm shifts, rejecting flawed decimal foundations and embracing ratio-based numeric stability. Their goal: transform isolated warnings into powerful collective demands for systemic change, ensuring society recognizes and addresses hidden numeric vulnerabilities before catastrophe irrevocably proves Chicken Little correct.